back into the agenda, and Bob had inquired last week on behalf of, I bet, this lady that's sitting beside me. Morrow, Miss Morrow, and about petitioning to establish a county road, and so Bob will turn the floor over to you and Miss Morrow.
Well, this is kind of a preliminary thing. I've told Kay that, there's a process involved in this. And we have surveyed the lands out there. The Stoutland Cemetery is up here. This is T Highway. What had happened over the years, the Morrows owned this piece of ground, and her husband sold off bits and pieces of it. And so basically everything's been sold. These tracts have all been sold to other parties, and I've got the names of the people that are there. Unfortunately, what happened is that left these supposedly roads. Now, and I told Kay, we kind of went over this. There really is no reason for this road, this part of it, and this part of it, and probably the back part of this to actually be a public road. The way the driveways come in to this tract and this tract, and there really is nothing back here right now. So what she would like to do is deed this or quit claim it to the county for road purposes. And I've explained the process about, the petition and the 12 signatures and all the rest of it and being posted. The reason we're here today is to see if that's a possibility.
I have an application, I think, in the office if you
Sure.
would like to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If I can get that put together. I'll be right back then.
And so I think, Bob, the other day you had indicated those are probably already 50 foot width.
They're at least, this part of the back here is 100,
Okay.
which is more than normally would be required, even if you did. And the other problem is that where the existing road bed is kind of skewed to one side of the track. I told Kay that there's probably a possibility that she may have to go in and do some improvements to the road surface itself to.
Yeah. So you're familiar with this as much as the three of us here, but we would send out the road and bridge foreman. We would have him evaluate the condition of the road. If there was any recommendations that he would make to bring it up to standards, then we would expect Ms. Morrow to do that.
Right.
And then it sets for a year. Currently, I believe in our policy, it sets for a year. And then we would maintain it beyond that point. And of course, the petition process, again, Bob, you know that.
Well, I'm familiar with it.
Back side of your hand.
And I guess probably maybe the first step would be just to have the road foreman to go out and take a look at it and kind of let us know, what's going to be required. There's a couple different options. I think the public road would by far be the best for the landowners out there. What happened? Her husband's deceased, and so she's kind of stuck having to deal with this. And she's like all the rest of us. We're getting old, and she doesn't want her kids to have to deal with it, and felt that it would be better to go ahead and take care of it now rather than.
So would it, and I'm just thinking out loud here, and I understand then that these two would just probably be given back to those landowners?
Yeah, and what I told her my recommendation would be to split this, give that to the two adjoining owners there. Same thing here. This one, for whatever reason, sits back 30 feet. I said it would probably make sense to make it the same depth. and
How wide
maybe,
is the entrance spot?
well, you know, I thought about that this morning. It's probably a little bit less than 50, but I'm not sure. I can tell you, I've got it on the computer, and I can let you know. But that's the only bottlenecked area on it right now.
Looked like it was a little bit narrow there.
Well, it is, but what's deceptive about that is this is 60 here.
Right, those are too wide.
And that's 100. So I mean, it's probably in the vicinity of 50. But
Bob, what's that address? Is there one of those addresses just as a point of reference for us to get?
I'll leave this with you. I don't know. You know what the address out there would be, Kay?
I know it's Jessica Lane.
Yeah.
Jessica Lane. Okay. David, is that yours or is that Darrell's? Okay.
I'm not positive.
Okay. Why don't you get a hold of Mike and ask him to go out there and evaluate that, and then give Bob a call after you have that conversation, and then before we go to a lot of extra steps, right?
Right. Yeah. I want you all to look at it first and kind of let us know where we're at on it. And I suspect that there really would be no reason to take the road any farther than this. Go past where those two driveways are coming off.
You'd have to take it at least to the last lot.
Are these part of these?
This was not part of their. They access.
So they have
it.
access. over
Yeah,
there.
they've got other accesses in there. I'm sorry. What?
But you at least have to take it beyond the property line to get a driveway.
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, right now they've got their driveway coming in off of this tract here, so it needs to go back far enough to catch both of the driveways.
Are these pretty obvious out there? Okay. Are there fences there now?
No.
There's not?
No, where the
Okay,
tracks are.
so
No.
it's not real clear then.
No.
Stay with you.
Okay. I don't know any reason why we couldn't make that happen probably within a week or so.
That's
Bob, I think.
Yeah, we've been dealing with this for what, a year, Kay?
Okay.
So, and she's been dealing with it a lot longer than that, you know, but, and right now, she's actually being taxed on that. It shows up as a tract that's still in her name.
And I'm sure those homeowners would like to have a few extra feet. And
Yeah. Yeah, and they probably, I mean, honestly, it would be in their interest to have a public road there.
Yeah.
And I will get back with you, David, and let you know what that.
Okay.
The frontage width's a little deceptive. It's probably wider than 50, but you know, and it's pretty well centered there. Back here's kind of the issue. And if we need to narrow it down to 50 or 60 feet, we can do that as well. Because she can deed it to the adjoining owners also.
Yeah.
Any questions? Kay, have you got any questions? Okay.
I'm just, I just want it cleaned up. I don't want to leave a mess.
Okay. Where are the roads or the drives built now?
Well, that's why I brought this photo. I think you can.
So they're basically just going to here.
Well, no, it goes back here. Pretty located.
It's like this one's got.
Well, I guess,
Yeah, there's a driveway there, and this driveway here actually cuts the corner of this track.
Let's see depending on where you guys cut this, we're gonna, they're gonna have to bring it up to spec.
Sure.
For us to be able to inspect it, so, we're gonna need at least a minimum of 40 feet
Oh,
road bed,
well, yeah,
so.
or something that's going to meet your standards.
Right,
My recommendation would be that be moved over a little bit,
yeah,
because we know physically where it's at, but you're going to need room on both sides to be able to maintain it. So
and then, they require somewhat of ditches and
Sure.
depending on the terrain.
Yeah, and honestly, David, I have not looked at the drainage on there. I don't know whether, there's gonna need to be culverts or what all's involved.
Okay.
Okay, you all can hang on to those if you want.
Okay.
and
Okay.
That way you sort of know what's going on.
All right.
Good.
Bob,
And I'll
thank
give
you.
this to Kay. We're not gonna do anything with this until we hear back from you though.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thanks,
you.
Bob.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Bob.
Ms. Morrow.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Everybody doing all right, I guess?
Yeah.
Good.
So Bob, is your guys' goal, you think, to give us 50-foot here?
Well,
Is that?
that would be, it would make sense to me because you all don't need 100-foot right
Right,
of way.
no, we don't.
And it's just more, I think probably the best thing to do would be to at least have 50 feet and deed the access over to the adjourners.
Right.
And,
That
and I'm
makes
not a
sense to me.
grader operator, but I know in a couple other instances it looks somewhat similar to that, where we don't have a place to turn around.
We're gonna
So-
need some sort of a
Okay.
cul-de-sac.
Cul-de-sac, right.
Okay.
Yeah, probably put the cul-de-sac probably right along
Yeah.
here somewhere.
If you look at the deeds, actually, some of the deeds actually call it out as being a cul-de-sac, but there is no physical cul-de-sac out there on the ground.
Well, there's a 100-foot cul-de-sac.
Might have been a good idea. Did you have some additional questions? Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All we need. Thank you, Kevin.
Bob, thank you. Thanks, Ms. Morrow.
Thank you.
Morning, Phillip. David, I think when we leave, you just take that with you. Okay. Darrell, you can't take the Royals banner, okay?
That's awesome.
That's a fairly family heirloom,
Family
so you
heirloom.
can't take that.
All right.
Okay.
I do want, I'll get my picture in front of it.
Okay, all right,
Selfie after we're done.
okay.
I was that close to having one.
All right, so, Phillip, thank you for, coming in this morning. And this will pretty much then complete our agenda items, so that's really good timing. And I think, Phillip, the commission might have some questions about the Lebanon rule, CDT applications, and, so we'll ask those questions, gentlemen.
I wish I'd have refreshed, because
Okay.
I can't remember what it
Okay,
was.
so,
I mean, I know
yeah,
we
so,
didn't think it met the guidelines. but-
well, so what the request for, it looks like for 20, is that right, Phillip? 20 iPads with a service agreement as well. They're going to invest $7,820. If the CDT application is approved for this, it'd be $6,000, or if not approved for this, there's still opportunity for $6,000 for other purposes. But I guess, so really the request is for $6,000. They're going to invest a little bit more. The guess in my mind, or the question I have in my mind, Phillip, is, are these going to be used in a classroom situation? And where's that going to be at?
At our fire station. So we host basically the county's fire services training program. So we put on basic fire, medical, first responder for all of the county fire departments. Currently, up until now, we've been utilizing books. Basically, you buy just like any other classroom cache of books. Every so many years, those go out of date, so we have to buy new books. So a lot of departments have switched to like a digital platform like this, and essentially what happens is all the students' classroom material will get loaded onto the iPad, and one of the things that we're invested in is a charging station and something to keep them locked up and organized. But basically all of their classroom material will be loaded on there, their books for first responder, just whatever class they're gonna take. Basic fire, sometimes we put on fire 1 and 2. We host a lot of division classes. Essentially, kind of just the basic ways, it's easy for our guys to manage. We don't have to buy caches of books and then refresh all the iPads with the new digital copies of everything. It also gets all their classroom or classwork or skills books get loaded on it, and pretty much that's the gist of it.
Okay, so I have 2 or 3 follow-up questions, Phillip. So these are iPads, and personally, I use an iPad a lot. But I'm just curious, the iPad versus a Chromebook. Was there any research in that? Because Chromebooks could probably and could be a good reason to go iPads. I don't know.
Our training guide, and this has been months ago that we actually researched this, but for he actually did research into it. We decided to do the iPad one to get the Apple Care, which replaces it if it gets damaged or broken or whatever. And they were about the same amount of money each way, so I can call him if you'd like.
I wouldn't be one that would be using them. It just, I was curious because I know Chromebooks can be a little less expensive, but if the program is written for iOS and Windows, and I'm not sure how so the programs installed on these, obviously these would have Wi-Fi capability, but the program actually be installed on the unit itself. Okay, so apparently it's written for iOS or Microsoft, either
Basically,
one.
they're going to be set up in a classroom setting, so they'll have basically everything shut off. So we do all the management of it.
Okay. And then here at the county, obviously, we put inventory tags on all of our purchases. Like if it's, typically we set a dollar amount, so there's an inventory tag that says property of Laclede County. Does Rural Fire use any type of tag system, inventory control? Okay. Okay. Those are the questions I had, and then the question came up, does it fit our normal standard process for CDT funds? Usually, we see we're going to buy some type of fire equipment, so this was just a kind of a one-off. So those are the questions I had. I think Linda has the institutional knowledge, not putting her on the spot. Gentlemen, question time.
Well, I think I have raised the question, does that meet the guidelines of the CDT and what it's designed for? Because I wasn't sure, so that's why I asked the question. I think that's what prompted this.
Yeah. And that decision may ultimately come back to the 3 of us. But it was a good question to ask, because again, normally we would see some type of fire apparatus equipment or to help with payment on a piece of equipment, things like that. So probably just the first time we've seen it. So I'll open it up for discussion.
The question I would ask is there 20 guys that you have within your department itself?
Well,
Or was
so
it really
the classes
average?
are open to anybody in the county.
Yeah.
So 20 is about our average, so that's why we chose 20.
So to ask you, how is this helping Lebanon Rural Fire Department benefit its assets?
I don't know, it's kind of enhancing our training program a little bit.
And I think that's the idea of the equipment or something. How is it helping you benefit your assets for the department? Do you have a building payment this year?
Even on the new one out there?
I say since 2019, so to get that done.
Is it furnished?
It's getting closer. They're installing electric and heat currently today.
Did we receive, and I didn't keep a copy of it, the financial for last year? Did we get the financial with the?
Yes.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay. Did we? Okay, I don't have a copy.
Can that $6,000 go towards your installation of heating
Yeah,
and cooling?
I have tons of other stuff that we can apply for. So, I mean, it doesn't have to go to this. it's just, I have to pick something at our start of our fiscal year when we set our budget that I'm gonna spend CDT on. That's just what I chose this year.
And if the decision of the commission would be to lean more into an alternate to this, you're still going to deploy this program.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you had one item then beyond this, Phillip, what would it be?
Well, we've got new trucks, we applied for equipment for that. Probably that would be the biggest news on the new truck side.
And that would be specific to Lebanon rural, because the other rural fire districts, they submit their applications as well, and it's usually specific, well, not usually, it's always specific to their needs. So that might be the boundaries or the guidelines that I'm kind of seeing a consensus that we would like to maintain. So it's specific to your needs, specific to Eldridge, Sleeper, as opposed to one CDT application. So understandably, everybody can benefit from what you're saying. I'm not questioning the merit of that at all, Phillip. So I hope nobody would be left with that impression. Why don't you get us a need for your equipment, and if you wanna just write that on here, and we can not delay you any longer.
So do you want me to mark it out real quick, or?
Do it in blue if you want to, Phil.
Do what?
Do it in blue if you want to.
Blue?
That will stand out.
What should be in red?
You want me to do this while you guys are finishing
You're
up?
fine.
I think we're done.
Okay.
That's they're
You're fine.
they're hoping to be able
This
to
is not a
process you on.
question of the benefits of what you're
Just do this
doing
easy.
there. It's just
And right below it.
All right.
trying to stay in the guidelines of the CDT protocol.
And then you can use other funds to help that.
Thank you.
Because we can pay on your heating and air conditioning
Whatever you put in the truck.
or trucks.
Well, we need equipment still on our trucks, so.
Well, I'm saying it could, this year CDT could pay for something you're already paying for this year.
Oh, I
Or
got
it could pay for something additionally you want. It could go either way.
I got you. We could apply towards the heating and cooling. Would that be fine?
Sure.
All right.
Or it can apply for new equipment, but yeah, it can go either.
Gotcha.
You don't have to go buy something new if you've already got something qualified. You can do that next year.
New construction. There you go.
We'll
How's
put
that?
it in for payment.
Hmm?
With approval, we'll put it through for
All
payment.
right, here's your pen back.
How long does it normally take you guys to get organized after you get it up?
This is actually the first big fire station build that I've been a part of, so I'm not 100% certain. I know I gotta get with ISO and get them, start getting that process, because all we were really waiting on, we've got a truck ready to go, start rolling out the fire station. So we're waiting on basically electric, so we can start running garage doors and stuff. So they're working on that currently this week, and we should have it done by the end of next week.
So say moves pretty slow though.
Yeah, yeah, they, it depends on what it is, like, when I get mapping back, they can fairly quickly do
Really?
maps done for us, but as far as actually being recognized, not 100%.
What's the address of that?
It's 18191 South Highway 5.
It's useful information for an insurance agent, isn't it?
Yeah, and I fought with them for years to try to get, we have an automatic gate agreement with the city, and I fought for
so much more.
It helps some of the people down there. Because who runs within 5 miles of the fire station, but typically they want to see it to your closest station, which our closest one there is East 32.
Do they do that fill up by road miles or air miles?
It's actual road miles.
Road miles.
Yeah, and so we're a little different. Like the city has their own mileage per station.
Okay.
We get a different cut because we're volunteers in the county, so we get basically 5 road miles. per
Could you
station.
put one of these in by every Dollar General? Then the whole county would be covered that
Yeah.
way.
With this one, we've got a couple more spots to work on eventually down the road, but we'll have most everybody in that 5 road miles, so that's a good thing.
We need one out on Normandy and 32, or we need one over
So that's
on the
covered by
other
our
or the
station.
other end. But it's more than 5 miles, so if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so we need to put one somewhere about Dover Road and W Highway, because this one will cover all the way over to 123.
Right.
Station 3 covers down into the Neosho, far down the Neosho. And so we gotta basically fill in the gap there on the west side. And then after that, I've got a little area in Sunnyview and a little area around the 135 mile marker that's ISO class 10. So.
Are you still able to get personnel? Well,
It depends. Volunteer is a nationwide town,
right.
and we're struggling with things like everybody else is. So eventually we're gonna have to look at some kind of paid staff. We really need
That's what. How many paid staff do you have versus how many volunteers do you have?
I'm the only technical paid staff.
So how many volunteers do you have?
20s are
So you got-
about what we maintain on the roster.
How many of those are working,
All of them.
like actively, all of them?
Yeah, it depends. Are you meaning for the district or have a job?
No, I mean have a job that they additionally add the district.
Yeah, everybody works. Even so, we've got a couple of like husband and wives on the department. Both of them have to have a job just to survive right now. So it depends on what time of the day is, which
Right.
batch of people you actually get. So.
That's commitment on their part.
Okay, do we have any further questions for Phillip? The application's been revised to, he's applying for heating and cooling costs for Station 4. That's part of their new construction project. So having made that amendment, do I have a motion to approve the CDT application?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Do I have a motion second? Do I have any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye, all opposed, same sign. Phil, CDT application approved. Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll go to public comments, items not listed on the agenda, and I'll also go to roundtable. So,
I am, but we're working on it. Okay, awesome. Well,
okay, gentlemen, we're in roundtable now.
Back to that box culvert, aluminum box culvert on Kentucky. Mike did get another visit with, I don't know if it was this company that you had on, or it's where we got the one on Julie, same company there. They were like, the length of that to get the order would be 10 to 12 weeks. Mike thought it'd probably be a little bit more than that because it was last time, but anyhow, and I think that price was in the mid-60s.
I think it was 65.
65 or something like that, but my mind was over on this stuff with Taney County. I wasn't thinking about that box culvert with him this morning, but I think possibly if that's something that we look at doing with ARPA, I think probably need to determine whether or not what those funds look like after we get done with the things that we're still considering.
The time we see what those real numbers are, we may be
May have to borrow from
Maybe
Road and Bridge to pay that.
borrowing, scratching a couple of nickels together to pay for stuff, because that dwindled like
That went that went up like a flame, didn't it?
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I still don't want to believe it. All right, so we're still in roundtable. One of the issues we need to I think we can quickly address is the architect had sent us a recommendation for the plaque for the new 911 center. I think if we use the existing plaque from the courthouse from 1997 as a template, that would probably be the way I would proceed. There was discussion about, is it the county recorder? Is it the county surveyor? Is it the county sheriff? But I think if you go over here and look, I think they all have county, or we need to snap a picture of it. But we need to get this back to the architect as soon as possible. It probably isn't going to be here by our open house anyway, but there's still just a little window of opportunity if we can agree on what that would look like and get that back to him. So if we use that as our template, and if it says, and then the other recommendation was put them in maybe alphabetical order of the office holders. And are you okay with the I'll call it the theme, this edition is dedicated to those who answer the call. That was kind of our theme for the project, answer the call from the law enforcement side and 911 side. I think that fits for both of them. And this one out here is dedicated to the citizens of Laclede County. And I'm just putting it on the table for discussion.
Seems adequate to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
So if we go by that, and if it says county sheriff as opposed to just sheriff, and if it says, and I think all this does, so, and I don't know over there, public administrator, I don't know if it says county public administrator, but the consistency, I think, of that one.
I would agree.
Okay, Linda, any comments? Okay.
Just, they need to spell prosecuting attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the old
Run
English
the
style.
spell check on it when you're done.
Do you need to come on in? I'm not sure. I would hesitate too if I were you.
Come here, I came here to help with the election day, perhaps.
Good morning.
Good morning. I don't know, I'm, continue on, I mean, this is a public meeting, right?
Yeah.
It is, and you're always welcome, okay?
Sure.
So, all right, so, still in roundtable, anything else? There's a few items, that we need to consider for, before too much longer, and so as we funnel this, down on the remaining balance of the ARPA funds, one of the things that was presented was the computers that are going to need to be, that can't be upgraded to Windows 11. Is there any discussion we want to take up on that? Because there could be some lead time on that and some installation time. And along with that, we need 2 computers for 911, which I need to get with Linda and see where their budget's at, and see how that works out of the 911 budget or whether those come out of ARPA. But I think that's another decision we need to make quickly if we're going to do that, so that we can get those online sooner than later, I guess.
Do we have a number of maybe how many units we're looking at?
27, Linda, was that right?
I didn't bring that in here, but okay.
Here's by office, Darrell, right there. Now 9 or 10 of those are in the sheriff's office, and I've asked the sheriff to help backfill that for me, because what they use are those Panasonic Tough Books, and theirs are about $3,300 each. The rest of these are typical of what we see generally that all of us use. But so they use those. I think they interact with, I'm sure, highway patrol, mules, all the things that I don't fully understand. So are they going to mandate that change or not? But what we know from Sumner 1, Windows 10 will not be supported after October of 2025. So if we take these into consideration for ARPA funding, or the sheriff would have to take those into consideration if need be through his funding mechanisms in his 25 budget. And that's part of the discussion I'm trying to understand with the sheriff. So 9 or 10 of those would exceed all the rest of them. We have 3 in the assessor, 1 county clerk, 2 prosecuting attorney, 4 for recorder, but we really need to look at that as well, because some of those are for public use, and I don't know if they're public use, why we, and if they're not on the network, then we would eliminate the possibility that there would be some type of hack into those, right? So if they're not connected to the network and they can still use Windows 10, use them until the machines die, right? Yeah. Or are they connected to the network? Those 4, I don't know about. They're probably on that list for a reason.
Treasurer.
And the treasurer needs one as well. And I just put that back out there because today's October 1st, and I would like to ask Linda. I know she's got a lot going on with those elections, and trust but verify. But Linda, tell me those numbers aren't right.
Which ones?
The ARPA fund balance.
I told you guys right all year long.
You're not going to change.
Can't
The
change.
numbers.
Let's work under pixie dust.
The numbers
This
don't
whole year.
lie.
Numbers don't lie. The only thing that, we kind of asked was if there was an encumbrance, but the reports aren't showing any encumbrance. from
Could
my side of it, so.
Could I suggest that I have Leanna look into that a little
Oh,
bit?
sure. She can see 'em.
Because she's been tracking
Sure,
that,
she can see 'em.
and if the retainage hasn't been encumbered, then I'll have to concede. But if somehow they've taken that into consideration,
Sure.
but your numbers would show that though, wouldn't it?
The encumbrance.
And that's, I know. Yeah. So I'll find out if those are encumbered. So maybe there's a
She
sliver.
took our HAVA fund.
Well,
We don't have a
How
her
do you
fund.
think she have a fund?
That's how the old thing works.
You can have a yours, but I have a yours too.
She have a ours now.
we just hear crickets at this end of the table down here.
Look, I don't know what to tell you.
All right, is there anything else?
Randy, all I can tell you is I think you're gonna have to believe.
Believe. Okay. Is there anything for next week? We have posted for tomorrow and Friday. Is there anything for next Tuesday? We won't meet Thursday, but is there anything next Tuesday that we need to get on the agenda? I'll put CDT applications back on there because I think we still have at least 1 or 2 out. Maybe they'll come in.
Do we ever get any updates on the roof?
No, I'll make that call today.
And what about the building seal? Do you want that by next week?
Yeah,
I would like,
research on that.
yeah, that I need to look at that, cause that could be a couple $100,000, and I'm like, if that's the case,
Or
Do we wanna
put it
do,
for discussion?
yeah, for discussion, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a whole condensed version now that needs to be looked at since the fund has been condensed. Knowing what we know now versus what we were looking at, taking options into consideration. Probably changes a lot of that. Priority wise. What day of the week would work if you guys to go to Taney County? How pressure? No day works.
Not because of time constraints,
Okay.
but no.
There's still a possibility for me, I just have to.
Just got to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You guys
We'll
see
work
what,
up
you guys
days.
see what's gonna work for you guys, and then I can check my schedule and go from
We'll
there.
just extend it.
You know, cause
You can or can't.
I never know from one phone call to the next where I'm actually gonna be
Yep. Okay.
and when, so.
We will do that.
How far out are you gonna try to project that?
I'd really probably like try to do it before it gets kind of sometime in the next 30 days.
You get probably still get this month.
Could be, you know.
I just have to see what works with y'all and what works with them, and then get back with me if you don't care, then we can see
Absolutely. I'll keep
what you got. That's the best answer I can give you right now.
something changes and you feel like.
Is it public comment time right now?
We can still do that, Erik, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So I have a problem with spending a lump sum of money on something that doesn't have an extra tax base to go with it to maintain it. So that's my hang up with driving to Taney County, is spending money on a machine or machines. And I think Mike alluded to it too. He asked the question, he didn't come right out. Manpower. So there's gonna have to be something that is gonna have to pay to sustain that project.
Yeah. Well, and if I'll give you a response to my best of my ability with that is that this isn't going down to purchase that equipment. This is going down to look at the processes of what they do, determine if that is a feasible thing or if it's a possible thing, or is it even something we would have interest in or wouldn't want to do it at all. We've looked at it, bid out to companies to come in and perform the service, and just it's cost prohibitive to have that process done. So is it even feasible that you would want to do that? Or because underlying is that meanwhile back at the ranch you still got you've got roads that are, what are you gonna do with them? They continue to just fill potholes and blade patch it, and we spent $100,000 in that process this year. There's $100,000 that went to budget, and you can cut it, but then you still have the problem with those paved roads. So that's just my perspective at it. It could be a solution, might not be a solution, but you wouldn't know until you go down and just examine what they do, how they do it. He gave me some cost per mile, but what he thought they have in a mile of doing that themselves, and how the length of time that it lasts. And so it takes interest, and it's worth investigating, in my opinion, to go and see what it is how they do it, and what their cost is. He gave me some cost if you had to go buy the equipment, and it is pricey, but everything we've got out there is pricey. I mean, if you're gonna have to buy another brush cutter. We burnt one burnt this, we didn't burn it, burnt. I'll restate that because we're probably on video. It burnt this year, and it was staggering what the cost of that thing was to replace it. We had insurance on it, which was great, but didn't cover the entire cost. It was amazing how they have just accelerated in cost. And so everything we've got is accelerating in cost, and we still have the same, basically, tax to take care of it. And now crew-wise, yeah, but if you're not crack sealing, and you're not potholing, and you're not blade patching as much, you've got guys that are involved in doing that process for the weeks that it takes to do that. It could be potentially you use the same crews to do this other technique. And so there's just a lot of things to look at. Yeah. And this visit really is more about, I think there's, okay, what are you doing on dust control? Because that is a huge complaint that you get from some of the roads, and especially the really high traffic roads. And so he voluntarily gave me that information. It'd be good to go down and see what it does do and what that cost might be added. Second part would be look at what they're doing on this pressure pave. It is, he was all in on that. They have a lot of paved roads that they take care of residential areas in and crossroads, and he's a firm believer in it, in this process. And it sounded something that you might want to take a look at, and it could be an alternative to going back and putting overlayments down on roads that an overlayment cost that we already know that how are you going to take care of the paved roads in the future? This could all feed into an overall it's basically just get an understanding of what some things are being done that we don't do currently. And not going down to think about buying equipment. It could lead into that kind of discussion. If we had the ARPA funds at what we thought they were going to be at, there might have been a slim possibility that you may have been able to expedite that. Look, those funds aren't there, so this is a more or less looking at what kind of techniques would you guys, because we're not going to be able to do it between now and the end of the year. This people that are going to be sitting in these seats after the first year and on that will be looking at what kind of processes they're on. And it's just a road trip to go take that in, have some information, processing that, and see what, if any or none of that could be instituted and be done here.
I'm a little curious about the salt thing.
I was too.
What that does, how it captures the dust.
He said it crusts and it solidifies that surface, and it reduces the amount of dust considerably. It sounds like a process that we looked at that was about $6,000 a jug that they use, and it's probably a brine type stuff that they use with rock salt and other things with it, and you put it on there, and it covers about half a mile. Well, rock salt's a whole different, not as that expensive, and it does control a lot. He said you will be amazed the difference in what that does with the controlling of the dust. And this is a guy that runs that Taney County.
Was he, you said he was the road and bridge foreman?
He's a supervisor, yeah, road.
Is one of their commissioners one that used to work for MoDOT? There's one guy we see at meetings that has
could be. I think that's who I talked to at the beginning, and then they dispatch it down. This guy called me back.
So
he's really engaging. Come down. I'm glad to show you all these different. And just take a.
So Erik, I think the real issue here would be always, from my standpoint, explore the possibilities, because long before I sat at this table, going back 20 years exactly, I approached the commission. What were they going to project and plan for upon passage of the CDT tax? So I sat in this very room, and if you'll go back and research the Lebanon Daily Record, Ed Sisson had a really lengthy article on that, because the challenge I had was, we've just written you a blank check for $3.4 million. I would like to know what the plan is for those of us who live in the county. So from that day, I've been an advocate for how do we plan better for the future for our roads. And I'm a strong proponent for that. So I have to look at it, what opportunities do I have, whether or not I can undertake those currently with funds, or even if it's the wise thing to do, like you mentioned, with current manpower, all those considerations. But I feel like that I need to educate myself so that at least I can make an informed decision. It may not be the decision that I think it would be going into it. And your point is very valid because we've had discussions regarding the number of miles that are currently hard surfaced and paved. And we have calls virtually every day from someone in the county. I'd like to talk about having my road paved. Well, and unless we can sustain what we have, then why would we add more to that? So you make it's a very valid point and question that you raise. And then in reference to any funding mechanism tied to that, makes sense as well, right? And so, but if we had that information to help us know that if that funding mechanism might become available, we'd have that already, that research already ready to go in the event we would have the opportunity to purchase the equipment. But it all comes back to me as a plan. So I've worked with these two gentlemen. How can we put together a plan that's forward thinking beyond just one budget year, and try and break that cycle? And it's a challenge. It is a challenge. But I never want to give up hope that there's might not be the day that a commission will be able to hard surface more roads to the point that we can sustain them. And that just gets more expensive every year. This is my 6th year, and if I made one statement that of a goal that I came in here that I haven't been able to see accomplished, and that's a 5-year road plan. And because the reality sets in real fast when I come into budget and I look and I see a $3 million budget, and I have $1 million in payroll and associated benefits, and then I have now close to $500,000 in graders, just the lease on the graders. We want to buy rock every year. We want to buy culverts every year, and I mean, it's a challenge. So I appreciate what your statement is, and I appreciate what Darrell said, because I think it's incumbent upon me to go look so that I can sit at this table with other commissioners and say, okay, guys, how do we move forward? Does this make sense or not? And I can't do that unless I have all the facts. Like, we've researched the dust control, and we've come to the conclusion that at $6,000 plus per mile, and it doesn't last all summer, it just isn't a good use of taxpayer funds. So we've said no. We've looked at maybe a stretch of a half a mile or a mile, bringing in a contractor to chip and seal, and there's different options there. But we don't want it to be where it's chip and sealed and we can't sustain it, again, to your point, or it gets ripped up like the road I live on, where the county probably put at least $250,000 or $300,000 on it, and then they come back and ripped it up because it didn't hold up. I don't think any of us want to own that, right? I mean, we want to put out a good product, and if we can't put out a good product, we need to be able to explain why we can't put out that product. And that's, for me, it's understanding well, this equipment's $250,000, and how am I going to sustain it? So I'm all in I'm all in understanding the other elements here. And that's just one of the opportunities. That's the word I learned yesterday. Everything was an opportunity. I was saying challenge, but everybody else was saying opportunity. So this is one of the opportunities we have. Long answer to your question or your statement. We're still, if there's any other public comments, if not, I would entertain a motion to.
I'll just add one thing that to go forward, you've got to be able to understand what your bag of tricks is. And this is just part of understanding that. You know, that's my language, I guess. Because if you don't understand everything that's available, you can't find the cheapest way there.
Well, and best value,
Best value.
Yes, something that will stand up. And I think that I'm interested in this pressure paving, if it's what I learned about a couple of weeks ago, because there are some roads that would be good candidates for that I understand it's about half the price of doing an overlay. And we're going to be confronted with doing some type of maintenance real soon on some of these paved roads, and that's going to force us to make decisions as to how we pull that out of that bag of tricks, as David said, out of budget. I mean, it's not going to be easy to pull out, even for something that's half of what it was, or we're going to have some relatively good roads that are going to, now that are 7, 8, 9 years since they've had an overlay, that's going to need some attention.
You're going to start blade patching them.
Yeah.
And they're going to be.
Yeah.
They're going to look.
So as an advocate for paved roads, and someone once said, Randy, you want to pave all the roads in Laclede County? I said, yeah, I'd like to, but I don't have $1 billion to do it, but should I stop short of hoping that at some point there isn't an opportunity to do that? But we have to sustain what we have. And then you just have to look at the people in the eye and at the other end of the phone line, and you just have to explain to them there's here's our budget, and that's usually where I start. And I want to do more, but this is my limitation. I can't promise you something I can't do, and I'm not going to give you any false pretense that I can, because that is not the way that you build the trust in the community, so that in the event, if there is an effort for a revenue stream to accomplish what I think most people would agree would be worthy of pursuing, you've got to have the trust of the people before you go out to them and ask them to give us more money. So we have to maintain the trust by taking care of what we've got, and then we build that goodwill to some point where maybe there's a decision made.
I don't say much more on it, but
so what you're saying is I said too much.
No, I thought it was all good stuff. I can't help but think that some of the issues with the dust also start those issues about requesting getting the roads paved, because there's a lot of things why people want to pave, but if you can get the dust down, then it might alleviate a lot of that, because a lot of folks know that we have a lot of gravel roads, and it's probably not going to get a paved road out to some of these areas. It's just impossible. We don't have the $1 billion. It may take more than that. I don't know. There's a lot of roads, and we wouldn't pave those regardless. But those that are looking at that have that high traffic, and it is a big deal with that base rock dust, and high traffic is dusty, and you always have that top surface of when it's dry, it turns into washboarding, and it never goes away. And that's why they get aggravated. Their cars are shaking apart. I get it. I understand but this could be a process that might eliminate some of that and allow you to kind of focus again back on these taking care of the hard surface roads with some of these funding. And one of these things that we did this year, and it's going to be helpful for you all last year, but we've restrained ourselves from what we stuck into a CART funding fund, and it's set there, and it's going to perpetuate as long as it stays in that fund like that. So we took some of the gas tax increases and said, let's stick it over in this and reside over here with what we need to live off of to maintain the expenses of what's gone on out at Road and Bridge with equipment and all that. And then we put aside some and we agreed that we wouldn't touch it this year, but it's a good fund to begin to go forward with. And if it can sustain that in the budget coming up, then there is an opportunity there that you would have a little. It's not going to take care of a lot because we know that what a cost of a mile is to do anything with on a hard surface is a lot expensive. It's expensive. So, but if you can take care of 1 to 2, 3 miles a year, then you have something that you can work with a fund possible.
Did you ask him, the Taney County fellow, about had he done any approaches to paved roads with that pressure?
I didn't get into that deep, but obviously they have to deal with that just like probably more so than what we do because we stop at a lot of ours stop at the stop signs and MoDOT takes the rest of that off to most paved roads. Some of this is our paved road to a special one or something like that, but yeah.
Well, pressure sealing is kind of like recapping. It's not putting on gravel, it's taking care of what you already have as far as hard surface rather than another layer. It's just uses that layer and puts it back together, if you will.
Yeah, I don't
That's
really
the
understand
pressure
it. He's told me it's pressure paved, it uses aggregate, black sand, and et cetera. And it's got a little bit of a depth to it, but probably whatever the aggregate is that they put down.
But they needed to get it.
Maybe that's what they did out of East 32.
No, well, that's yeah, yeah. We'll get everybody good on that one. I drove that. It wasn't too bad all the last couple of weekends. Yeah, I don't know what that is that they did there. It's like a seal coat. I think that is a chip and seal mostly, but I don't know what. I really didn't understand the pressure pave portion. He said, well, you need to come down and look at that. Okay.
I think, Erik, your question on the approaches, and we just had that call yesterday, as a matter of fact, on a road out on 64. So MoDOT is responsible back to the stop sign. Now, there's been some discussions about MoDOT looking into that, and I think one of our local MoDOT supervisors kind of has some of that in the works, so that maybe on some of those more troublesome locations, we can alleviate those issues there at the approach. And I think that going forward, as you are engaged here, and if you'll go to like the TAC committee meetings, and those are transportation advisory council meetings, which we can all go to, okay? You'll find that discussion comes up among county commissioners at those types of meetings. So just keeping that top of mind awareness to MoDOT. And I think out here on North 5, where they did it on a few roads when they redid that part, just keeping them informed that, hey, this is an issue that we as commissioners encounter weekly in some cases. That's how we can serve the public, is if we can work with MoDOT on that. But it's their responsibility, and of course they're doing it within their funding, but they claim they have lots of money available right now, but a lot of counties aren't seeing it. But you'll have the opportunity to have those thoughts made known to them, and that is one that comes up about every meeting is help us out on these approaches. It really makes a lot of sense for them and for us, because this call gets directed to them, and so they're aware of it. I think we've solved every road issue in Laclede County now.
Plan now.
And
They're not solved.
what?
They're not solved. Yeah.
Um,
You brought up some issues, you haven't solved.
Well, this is
Well, we're
7 3/4 years for me, and whatever was not solved in that part, still some unsolved mysteries out there.
They needed it 10 years ago, they need it today, they'll need it
That's it. I
again.
don't know what the.
And they'll need a lot of them 10 years from now.
That's right.
Probably next time it rains hard.
Probably so, or the dry spell, or the winter, and coming out of that with the mud, and
But here's a note that I'll end on before I ask for any other comments or adjourn. So one of the things that I really appreciate looking back over the last 5 or 6 years, I believe the calls that we receive now, it's more common that we get a call, hey, I really appreciate what the grader just did on the road, or what the brush cutter just did. And I think the culture within our road and bridge department is now more customer centric. And I really believe that. So when we sit here and we look at the futility of and we're just confronted with what we want to do with what reality when it sinks in, but knowing that if we can always positively say we're always going to do our best, our very best, from this table to the road and bridge coworkers that are delivering that product, if we're always going to do our best with what we have to work with, I think we can all walk away that's why we're here. And I truly believe that today versus 4 or 5 years ago, the culture has changed, and if I can take an accomplishment just and recognize Road and Bridge for that, not me, but recognize them for that, that's something that I think is worthy of that praise and saying it, because there really is a difference in culture. We have the commission brought in an assistant. The phone used to be answered over at Road and Bridge. Well, the guys are out doing their work. You know, you might go over there and there might be 20 calls on that telephone. They're going to return the calls, but if you can return that call by the end of the day, that person that's called in, they're going to feel a lot better. And if you just tell them that you appreciate them calling in, that we can't have eyes on every road every day, but we appreciate it. Let us get this worked into the schedule. 99% of the time, there's a lot of goodwill created because of that. And so we've brought in, so the phone for Road and Bridge is answered here. So every time somebody calls in, they're getting a live person, unless that individual's at the lunch. And I guarantee you there's not very many places anymore that have a live person answering the phone. And that in and of itself has just, I believe, served our community in a way that they understand, they appreciate it, and they're willing to wait if you tell them it's going to be 2 or 3 days, right? Because the worst thing you do is promise them, I'm going to send a grader over there this afternoon. Now, occasionally you get lucky and the grader was going to be there that afternoon anyway, and you really look good. But most of the time, it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 days realistically before you can get a grader there. Or sometimes I'll tell them we have territories, and it's going to be a week and a half before that person makes that territory again. And if you follow up, and I'd say 99 times out of 100 now, that is happening. And that just is probably one of the things that we just continue to be able to deliver that doesn't cost more money. So anyway, I'm off my soapbox, but I think the road and bridge guys are doing a good job, and we have more longevity, more tenure in most of those positions, and that's paying benefits. So Darrell kicked me, Linda kicked me. You probably have elections to go to. Is there anything else to come up? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move for it.
Okay.
Adjournment.
I thank everybody for coming.
Close session.